Greetings everyone. Welcome to Datagaps webinar. I'm Puja Gupta, Growth Marketing Manager at Datagaps, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today. Before we get started, we have a couple of quick housekeeping comments. First, we have muted all mics to avoid unintended distractions. Second, we have included a couple of polls which will reflect in the middle of the session from time to time. And we would request every attendee to share their feedback by answering those poll questions. And last, if you have any queries, please type it in the Q&A section. We will take them all at the end of the session. In today's transformative session, we will explore how generative AI is redefining data pipeline validation. With data complexity growing and business decisions riding on trusted analytics, we all dive into how AI can automate rule generation, simplify test creation, and ensure end-to-end data quality across modern data architectures. Get ready for practical insights, live examples, and fresh take on testing with GenAI. On panel today, we have Mr. Anand Rao, VP of Marketing at Datagaps, and Subhanshu Dixit, Senior Solution Architect at Datagaps. With this, I hand this over to Anand and Subhanshu. Anand, you are in the spotlight now.
Great. Thank you, Puja. And hello, everybody. Great to see you here. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our webinar. We are here to show you how the new AI tools change the data pipeline testing landscape. You'll see how quick error alerts or auto-built tests and continuous checks keep those dashboards trustworthy. So we'll compare these AI-driven gains with the old QA methods and explain how they boost data ops speed, cost, and confidence. So let's get started. So as I mentioned, today we'll compare modern AI-driven testing with older methods. You'll see how the automated ETL checks catch these errors during all the data movement, and how these non-stop quality checks keep you within the rules. And we'll also show how AI keeps dashboards accurate and makes test data easy. And we'll have a live Datagaps demo, thanks to Subhanshu here, our solution architect. And you leave with clear steps to boost reliability quickly. So now let's look at how AI-driven testing compares to more traditional approaches of testing. So a little history lesson here. So think of software testing like the way we listen to music. I thought of music as an analogy. So in the tape era, testers checked programs by hand after the coding was finished, whether it was pipeline coding or software coding. This was a slow process, so bugs showed up later in the cycles, and they were expensive to fix. The next era, let's call it the CD era, we wrote test scripts that ran faster, but they often broke when the application or pipeline changed, so the maintenance was harder. The next era is the streaming era. Think about the Spotify or other older services before Spotify. And this is the agile or the DevOps kind of methodology starting to come in. So teams test inside every sprint. So you got sprints and the teams are testing inside every sprint, but many releases and microservices within software or pipelines added new complexity while the budget stayed tight. So now AI is our Spotify moment, right? Machine learning models and other tools study the past bugs and the data pipeline structure or the dashboard structure to create, rank, and even fix the tests on their own or as semi-automatically as possible. So they spot the flaky parts early and let a larger audience, a larger participant pool, such as non-coders, write the tests in plain language, so the extent of the test coverage grows. So AI is able to update the tests as the product changes, saving huge effort. So the bottom line is this: simple automation is no longer enough. Adding AI gives faster feedback, you have stronger tests, and the confidence to release daily without the fear of defects. So teams that ignore this shift risk slower launches, slower migrations, higher costs, and more bugs. So AI is making test automation smarter, not just faster, right? Which the previous releases or the previous waves did. So now you're able to write tests, whether they are data pipeline tests or quality tests or dashboard tests, in plain words. So the low-code tools turn your steps into scripts. And then there's the whole self-healing process. So when a page changes, some of the tests can fix themselves. This is a promise of AI, and we are getting there, but this is the whole reason for adopting AI. And then there's the instant test creation. So AI auto builds about 30 to 40% of the regression tests, for example, right? It may not be 100% of the tests, but 30 to 40% is a good start. And then finding those edge cases. So large models imagine these tricky scenarios that testers often miss. And then you want realistic sample data. So the synthetic data engines supply lifelike values at scale. And then you want to predict those trouble spots, so the algorithms can scan the previous code to flag the risky areas. And then you want smart visual checks. So think about all the dashboards and the reports and the pixel level comparisons to catch all those hidden UI glitches. And then finally, at the end of the test, you want an insight dashboards. So the results across all those pipelines and dashboards reveal certain patterns and guide your fixes. So together, these tools allow QA from chasing bugs to preventing the risk and letting teams release faster and with greater confidence. So how do you start using AI in testing? So how do we make this as simple as possible? So you target the pain points first. So pick the parts that break often, whether it is any kind of complex data pipelines or some kind of key APIs or key dashboards. Pick those target pain points first. Then you add low-code AI tools into each sprint. So most people nowadays have DevOps or data ops implemented in those organizations. And so adding these low-code AI tools, developers and testers make these tests together while the tasks are still fresh. And then you hook these tools into your CI/CD processes, your continuous integration, continuous development process. So every update of a data pipeline or a dashboard runs these smart checks, and they give you fast feedback. You also let the business analysts write the tests in plain language. So these AI models turn their words into runnable scripts, and you're boosting these coverage without any new hires. And then you're able to track those wins. You're able to measure the shorter testing and development cycles. You have fewer escape bugs, and you have hours saved on maintenance and upkeep. So you want QA to stay in control. You choose the platforms with the clear reports and override any buttons of false alarms. So in summary, you want to start small, you want to prove value, and then grow into bigger AI optimization, like predicting the release readiness and so on. So, given that background, now let's look at ETL testing and the data migration test cases that can be automated using AI. So the first is about auto generation of the ETL test cases and why auto generation beats writing them by hand. So writing ETL test cases yourself is a slow and easy to mess up process. So Datagaps reads your source to target mapping files, your mapping docs, if you will, and instantly builds the tests for every test case that you want, whether it's testing those transforms, testing those data types, or any kind of additional data quality checks that you want. And when the mapping changes, the tool is able to rebuild only those affected tests. So if a few of those mappings within the mapping docs change, only those test cases are affected. So everything else stays in sync. And then you have built-in safeguards within those tests to compare the row counts, the sums, the checks for nulls or the bad ranges or the broken references. So no extra scripts are needed. And then it groups these tests, the related tests, to run in the best order, keeping those nightly runs of those tests fast and therefore cutting your cloud costs. So imagine all that infrastructure cost that you're bringing down by optimizing the tests. And the result is you get full data accuracy with far less work, perfect for all those big migrations that you're planning or any kind of fast changing schemas that you want to continue to test. The second area is how something like a SQL assistant could be used to write fast, correct SQL rather than doing it manually. So writing that correct SQL that is optimized is hard and it slows down your work. So Datagaps offers like a chat style assistant that you type in a plain English request and this quickly turns it into a ready to run SQL that can run on Snowflake or Postgres or some other platform you're using. So the AI looks at your data catalog, picks the right tables, and then builds the joins, the lookups, the filters, and the totals for you. So developers can tweak the query. Business analysts who barely code can now get the answers on their own, cutting the help desk queue. And the tool spots expensive mistakes. So if you're having, say, Cartesian joins or missing filters or heavy functions that the tool can suggest fixes before the query runs, saving you a lot of time and money of compute. And each query can be wrapped in an automatic test to make sure that the results stay correct over time. So think of it as a tireless AI data engineer that speeds work, cuts the errors, and keeps the governance intact. So the other area is the automatic generation of documents, mapping documents, and other tests for the old SQL. So in many cases that we have seen, old procedures, whether it's ETL procedures, stored procedures, SQL procedures, have not been updated, and from using the design notes, and so people continue to guess the updates to the logic. So Datagaps reads this code, it scans the procedures, it views and pulls out every column change, every rule, every join, and builds these easy to read mapping documents and specs. So there's no more tribal knowledge that is required. The diagrams update whenever the ETL code changes. And these mappings feed straight into the automated checks that verify the row counts, the data quality, and the rules. And then all these exports are audit ready. So one click shows how sensitive data or key metrics flow, and complete with the version history for any kind of internal audit or external audit. And the tool flags slow or risky SQL as well and suggests better ways to write that SQL. And any new developers see exactly where each transformation is present and what it does, cutting the ramp up time from several weeks to days. So the end results is teams don't have to reverse engineer the scripts and focus on improving performance, compliance, and collaboration, as there's AI to help you do that. So the next section is about data quality management and monitoring and compliance. So we'll shift focus from the pipeline tests to the metadata tests, right? You'll see how AI fills in the data catalogs automatically. It is able to suggest data quality rules. It's able to spot anomalies as they happen. And all this, you'll see as the quality and the pipelines unite and give data-driven governance, or rather AI-driven governance. So the first, let's look at why the easy-to-read catalog notes matter. So, and all of us have experienced this. Cryptic column names slow everyone down. Datagaps scans the real data and writes clear labels, like, say, for example, account creation date, and not CRE underscore DT, for example. So AI studies the values and links to the suggested good labels and data classes. It runs nonstop, updating those notes for the different tables and columns, and alerting you when the data changes. So all these clear names let analysts work faster. They cut help desk tickets, and the data stewards can accept or edit the suggestions, creating a healthy feedback loop. So smarter than simple regular expression tools, so it shines on messy legacy tables. And the result is all this richer metadata enables faster data discovery and catalogs that people trust and use. So how can AI write data quality rules for you? So handwriting rules for every table takes too long and costs too much. So Datagaps AI scans your schema and sample data, and then is able to suggest rules, like, for example, obvious ones like no nulls in key columns, or more subtle ones such as ID must match a certain pattern, or sales numbers should stay in a certain range. So data stewards are able to review, adjust the priorities, and turn those rules on. The system learns from new problems in production and is able to add checks so the same mistake never happens twice. And each rule comes with an easy to read reason and sample values, so people trust this advice. So the bottom line is you get wider, smarter protection with far less work, freeing those engineers to build new features instead of writing endless test cases. And then now we have observability, or why watching the data health is a non-stop process. So any kind of data downtime means that it's an outage. So broken tables hurt the business just like a system crash. So what you need are 24/7 checks. So Datagaps tracks the load time, the row counts, the value ranges, the schema, the lineage for every table. So if a row, say for example, drops 40%, or a load is late, or a new column appears, the tool is able to ping you with a likely cause. Maybe it's a bad upstream job, or skewed file, or a schema change, which is likely the case. So you are able to see the impact first. And we have dashboards, data quality dashboards that rank issues by business effect and are able to suggest quick fixes. So each incident, you can auto create a permanent test to stop the issue from coming back. We are also able to mix rules with machine learning and cut out the noisy alerts. So the result is the teams are able to spot problems fast, fix them quicker, and it keeps the executives trusting the data. And all this is essential as pipelines grow, as well as the data grows in petabytes. The other aspect of this is that we look for data trends. So pipelines can run fine, yet still pass along wrong numbers if the data's normal patterns shift for some reason. So Datagaps is able to record the fingerprint, if you will, for every column, whether it's the average, the median, the unique values, the percentiles, histogram, and track the changes over time. So smart algorithms flag any kind of weird jumps or slow drifts that simple quality rules often miss, like revenue jumping 10x overnight or a product category vanishing. So you can set the alert sensitivity level per table so you can see real issues without a lot of noise. And when something looks off, the tool shows before and after statistics, the upstream path, as well as any kind of tips so that you can fix the problem quickly. So models retrain on good data, so the thresholds are able to adjust for normal peaks, for example, at the end of the quarter, and cut out the false alarms. So this always on guard capability catches hidden data problems, keeps analysts and executives confident, and even reveals new business trends buried in all these small statistical changes. Next, we'll shift from pipeline tests and quality tests to dashboards, BI dashboards. So AI allows you to keep those BI dashboards correct. It spots data changes after any migration of those dashboards. Any kind of personal data is masked and managed for privacy. And so all these features complete end-to-end AI-powered data quality. So let me show you a couple of examples. So moving dashboards between tools such as Tableau or Power BI or Oracle can feel like a huge spot the difference game. So if anyone has often played those spot the difference games. So Datagaps uses computer vision and metadata checks to compare the layout, the filters, the KPIs, the formula, and as well as the security in both the old and the new dashboard. An AI helper explains the difference in plain words. So, for example, the profit margin metric is wrong or the region filter is missing, so anyone can understand. And this slashes the review work by about 60%, freeing the analysts from boring pixel to pixel checks. It times the queries, warns if a new dashboard runs slower, and spots any kind of permission gap that might expose sensitive data. So the results can go straight into Jira or Azure DevOps, whichever tool you use as the tasks you can track. And together, this visual, semantic, and plain language checks let teams migrate their dashboards faster, avoid any kind of hidden errors, and keep users trusting the numbers from very early on. And lastly, one of the areas that AI plays a massive role is the ability to find and mask personal data so it stays private. So you have all this, your capability to generate synthetic data. The system creates lifelike test data without exposing real records. And we'll dive into a demo, possibly a demo if time allows, to see these features. So AI finds PII fast. It scans every column for social security numbers or card numbers or names, and use these global patterns, plus of course, your company rules. When PII appears, the tool masks, tokenizes, or encrypts it before it reaches the test or report environments. And there are context clues as well, such as the table purpose, the nearby fields, as well as the shape of the values to cut down on any mistakes. And the tool also offers audit-ready lineage. So one click shows where the PII starts from, how it changes, where it's stored. And this is perfect for the regulators. So you don't have to hunt in spreadsheets. So automation replaces those manual inventories, freeing those analysts for higher value work. So the result is stronger privacy, less risk of fines or leaks, and safer data sharing across the business. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about synthetic data. So instead of copying the real customer data, Datagaps learns the patterns and makes few fake rows that look real but hold no PII. It keeps the table links, the value ranges, and the correlations correct, yet you can increase the edge cases or inject errors to test the rules. It's able to spin up small samples for quick checks or huge sets for any kind of stress testing of pipelines. You're able to save a baseline, compare the releases, and hand that data to auditors or partners. And the result is that you have up to 70% faster than manual masking, better coverage, earlier bug finds, and safe sandboxes for developers and analysts. So all without risking consumer privacy. So with that, I'll hand it over to Subhanshu, who will do a live demo of all these features that I just described, or at least as many as we can in the time allotted. So Subhanshu, over to you.
Thanks a lot for that. I'll switch on my camera as well. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Anand. And that's a very good point, which is if time allows us, all of these features are numerous and take some time for us to get into detail. So what I've planned for today are three main use cases for us. The first one is a bit of SQL query generation using prompts to allow the end user work on these test cases better. I'm going to show that live. Then we will illustrate how the application can use the document mapping documents that I have lying around, a few of the complex ones, to create the test cases live. And the final thing I would like to illustrate is how we can use code to generate these mapping documents as well. Those are the three parts of what we want to focus in on today. And again, all of this is from the purview of a QA tester. So let's get right into it. If you're not aware of the Datagaps tool, it can be installed and deployed within your infrastructure, cloud or on-prem, and it works with a variety of data sources. A few of them can be listed and can be shown right here on the screen. So our generative AI system can work in line with a ton of sources right out of the gate, and that's one of the key aspects that we want to illustrate. Now let's say I'm a developer and in this case QA person, and I want to create a few test cases. Let's do that live. The key thing I want to focus on today is that when I'm doing any source to target comparison, or if I'm working with any particular data set or query, what I can do is instead of using traditional query builders, I can use a generative AI system to do that for me. So here, as you can see, I have a Java shop system with the mart layer, staging layer, and mart layer right there. I want to make sure that I am creating a complex query because that is my purview, that's my requirement. My requirement is that I want to make sure, I want to see the orders with all food items, drink items, and mixed items. So here I'm being very clear on what I want. I'm adding some typos for the sake of the product itself, because the generative AI system should automatically understand what exactly I'm talking about and create the query in accordance. Of course, as backup, I've done this a few times so that if things are not present, we can actually do that. But here we go. Here we see that the application is understanding if there are food items, drinks items, or mixed items. Now, let's kind of give it another prompt. Let's say one order can have multiple items, aggregate them together. And now the application still understands what I want to do with them, and it can aggregate. In fact, if you look at the query, this is a relatively complex query. It's understanding that there are multiple joins that we have to work into. It understands that there is a group by aggregation needed, as well as what exactly we mean when we say food items and drink items. This is something I want to discuss a bit more while we check the preview and run this particular code. Because what we are doing here is we are providing the information in kind of plain text format. Like, it's very difficult for any LLM result we are discussing. The reason the application is very good at interpreting these particular set of systems is because we provide the LLM with additional context, which is basically a RAG. We provide the LLM with the context of what these data sets are, what do they mean, what is the corresponding transformation, and luckily for us, we have a problem statement that we can easily kind of fix within our system itself. And yes, as expected, these errors can also be resolved as part of our use cases as we see within the system itself. So that's one of the key use cases which you can use the product for if that is a requirement for your team. So once again, lots of things that can be done here, but this is the key aspect, that you can define your very own code base and you can define how you want to run them. And of course, you can always edit them, push back the edits, and see if the code actually runs before executing the test case from one purview to the other. And again, as we discussed, we have done this already in the past, and this is what I've done from the staging layer. And you will see that I've done something similar for my mart layer as well, where in this case, I'm even providing it more information to make sure it correlates with what I want in my staging. And this is one of the most important aspects. You as an end user, you can come in, you can type in queries, check if they work, and then compare them against their counterpart. In most cases, hopefully, you'll see that everything matches as intended. However, in some cases, you might see that the source and target do not match. And here, that's one of the key aspects where we are keeping, let's say in this example, the oldest and earliest state from the source and target system.
Yeah, moreover, we have one or two queries. We can go through that and while Subhanshu is coming back. So let's take up at least a single question. So one question, okay. There is a question how to validate paginated reports or Power App integrate visuals using Datagaps.
Okay, sounds good. So when you think about paginated reports, what we want to do is we want to reduce the time required for migrating across BI tools or doing regression testing. So Datagaps analyzes the visuals, the logic, the metadata within a BI platform or across BI platform and summarizes the differences in natural language, cutting the migration time or the regression test time and improving the trust in these reports.
How does Datagaps helps us scale data quality, metadata, rules, and ongoing monitoring?
Yeah. So that's a good question, and I briefly went over that as well during my presentation. Datagaps allows you to improve the discovery of that metadata and generate documents as well as descriptions based on that metadata. So it's able to generate business-friendly metadata and recommend any context-aware data quality rules and provide anomaly detection or observability across freshness, across the distribution, the volume, as well as the schema, reducing the need to manually create the rules and catch problems earlier. So it looks like
some issues with the platform, but let's jump right into it. What I was talking about earlier was the fact that you can provide specific, say, transformation rules that you want to do within the query builder itself. This is really powerful because your end users now don't really have to deal with the exact documentation as such. They can just provide the specifics of what they want to see, and the application, using the context provided by the application's RAG generation or a contextual model, can generate these queries with ease. And as you can see, it can take care of multiple joins, it can take care of a lot of aggregations and a lot of other systems. In a nutshell, when we are doing such a comparison, what we expect is a full match. But if there are mismatches found, like in this example, this indicates that the transformation logic that we had applied originally was somehow incorrect, or at least deviant from what we are expecting. And that key aspect is what we're going to use when we discuss the next aspect of our use cases, which is using our mapping manager. So let's jump into that and have a showcase on that front. So as expected, I have a few use cases ready, but what I'm going to do is try to do them live. So let's do a live showcase right here. Now, the first thing it's going to ask me is what my target is. So I'm going to select my target data model as well as my target table in question. All right, that's the first thing done. The next thing is going to be adding the corresponding sources from data. All right, so luckily I have a data source model and I can choose multiple tables inherently. And now comes the real important step, which is defining the actual mapping. As you see, we have insert code and we have manual. We're going to go through both of them in this demonstration. The first one we'll discuss is, of course, manual. Now here the assumption is that the source and target components have to be individually mapped against one another, and you can define if a particular type of transformation is a lookup, if it's an expression, and so on. For example, if my loyalty tenure month is dependent on the order dates of a particular customer, I can just provide that information. I can say that here in this case, when I'm working with sales, I want to see the order date. I want to see this for a particular customer key, and I want to also see when was its first and last order date. And now what I can do is provide a specific expression that what this particular column is supposed to be. Loyalty is the time between first and latest order, and that's why order date is important for this purview, and the application will automatically understand what this is. Of course, doing this manually is very cumbersome on that front, and hence we would like to automate it. And the first step here is what a lot of QA personnel end up with is a mapping document like these. So this is the mapping document where I have actually created all the use cases that we want to work with. As you can see, most of this is in plain text. I have another example where this corresponding transformation documentation is in pseudocode as well. Let me showcase that first. So in this example, we have things in pseudocode where the business rules and other aspects have been associated in pretty much straightforward language. And depending on the documentation that you're working with, you can have both. You can have pseudocode. You can also have plain text complex documentation. And here you can have complex use cases as well, where you have specific lookup columns which are in association, a combination of multiple tables built in itself. So there's a lot that you have to work with. So, as a QA tester, what do I do here? Well, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to upload this mapping document and let the AI systems handle the rest. So let's do that. Instead of doing all of this manually, I'm going to import my mapping document. All right. Just a second. Yeah, let's browse it. Interesting. Let's go for files. There we go. So we can just upload this one right there. Oh, apologies on that. Let's go back to let's discard it. That's perfectly fine by us. Let's go to the next step. Let's click manual. Let's import the Excel that we would like to work with. Oh. Okay. Well, no worries. That's why we have multiple versions of this where we can do this. So in this case, once again, I can directly import the mapping file itself as and when required. There we go. So now this is going to be imported as needed. And let's import. Oh, now let's do it right away. I'm just going to repeat the steps here to make sure that the mapping insights work as intended. And as you can see, this is a very good tell of showcasing how easy it is for the product to work with this purview. We go into manual, we import our mapping document right there. And this mapping document is going to automatically associate all the columns with their corresponding rule sets. So it tells exactly what we are expecting across our multiple systems using the Excel that we have provided. This is really helpful because the next step, as you can imagine, is going to be generating the transformation checks. Now this can take some time given the amount of columns we put in there currently is about 50. So that's why I have done all this already in the past. And what this basically comes down to are transformation checks which are automatically generated that tell you what exactly you're trying to do. Because again, the way we have defined our mapping transformation, let's take a look at that. When we're defining our mapping transformation, we have expressions, we have lookups, and we have a lot of other use cases. If I go ahead and try to do everything, say one column at a time, that is going to take a lot of columns and a lot of, say, egress cost, because you'll have to, every time you're validating this particular system, you'll have to pull the entire table itself and then define what columns you'd like to validate. Instead, what you can do is customize them so that you can group these test cases together. And that is what we have done right here. We have grouped a few set of test cases all together so that when we look at some particular use case, like a validation system, we can see exactly what has happened for that particular use case. The alternative here is if you go ahead with if you go ahead with a singular test case where you combine everything together and then you review that. That is possible as well. But as you can imagine, if you have 50 columns in a table and a particular column is having some problems, it's very difficult to debug. So what we have understood is that when you generate these test cases as per your use cases and other systems, it's very helpful that you generate them using the application. And of course, this is just a penultimate step. If I can just go to this use case, here we see that our transformation has been done. The application has automatically understood what we are trying to do and how we are trying to validate email addresses, how we are trying to extract systems, and so on and so forth. So this is how the application is going to do. And of course, it also does something very important. It kind of tries to run the query specifically before executing it. That way we can actually send back this particular prompt for it to regenerate the query in a much more applicable fashion. But back as a QA tester, what have I done so far? I have uploaded the documentation, I have let the application run, and why don't we let it generate the test cases as well? There we go. Now it can just generate the test cases in an automated fashion. So in this particular system, what I have done is that I have automatically generated test cases altogether in bulk using the application. And that is how easy it is at the end of the day. All we need is the corresponding context, which can be the mapping document, or as we will see shortly, code bases and other systems as well. And there we go. We are back where we wanted to be. we have created individual test cases, and each of these test cases can be customized to a great degree, linked and unlinked, and version controlled as well, to match the updating transformations that you might be dealing with from your purview. And again, we can take a look at the results as well here in this case. Everything seems to be matching. It's just that our target holds a few extra records as opposed to our source. So a few transformations are working as intended. As per our previous examples, if there are transformations which don't work as intended, we will catch them as well. Of course, in your case, it won't be a full match or a full mismatch. There could be a specific level of matches and mismatches as well. But it goes to show that when your transformations are wrong, a good chunk of your data could be incorrect as well. But we do a full data compare just to be on the safe side. We are not done, however. Mapping Manager has one more trick up its sleeve, and that is data quality rules generation. This is something that Anand has touched base on as well. Here we use the context that is provided by us in the data dictionary, in the documentation, and we use that to generate a data quality rules as per the system generates. Now, once again, it will take a few seconds to generate. What I'll do is I'll use this time to go ahead to the TQ rules that I had already generated in the past, or we can ask it to regenerate them as well. And these rule sets, once again, are generated based on the purview that we want to make sure that the quality checks are with regards to what we have provided. Meaning that the documentation that we have sent earlier, say right in this particular case, I can even show an example here. Here, low, medium, and high should be the only values present. That's one type of rule that you can work with. When we are extracting a phone number from this particular system, say in this case, we are extracting the phone area code, we need to make sure it's a valid code. And so on and so forth. These kind of checks or doing on top of your transformation is pretty helpful, along with the usual duplicity check, null checks, and other aspects, which are all automatically generated by the application. There we go. As you can see, we are making sure that the formats are in the expected ranges and so on and so forth. This is something that the application inherently does. And no worries, you can choose what you want to go ahead with. You can edit stuff out. You can even provide it additional prompts to direct it and further tune the application to understanding what exactly you are trying to do. So again, it's a process, but it's a really automated process. It can save a lot of time because in a few clicks, I mean, that's the summary of what we have done in just a few clicks. We have basically created rule sets and test cases, both from the data quality side as well as the ETL side. All right, now let's discuss a pretty cool use case, which is our brand new use case, which is the other aspect. So when we were at the mapping step earlier, it asked us, do you want to put in code or do you want to put in the transformation logic manually or via the Excel document? As Anand has mentioned correctly, a lot of us in this industry deal with the fact that we don't really have documentation lying around, and many times projects and files are just given to us without any actual documentation. So how do you deal with this? Well, from our perspective, what we have understood is that we can create a system where this mapping itself, this entire Excel, or in this case, the code base itself, can be provided to our system, and it's going to generate the mapping based on its understanding. Once again, the context comes in handy here. We are giving descriptions, we are giving the expected relations between tables when these mappings are being generated, and they look a little like this. But the application has automatically understood what set of source columns match against what set of target columns, and as you can see, we can work with many to one as well within the system. I can provide it additional context as well. And what our default is currently is to work with pseudocode, given that it works much better with regards to the documentation in many cases. Again, this is up to debate. But what we are adding with our upcoming releases is also the fact that you can express these transformation logics with the next system. So it's not just the actual pseudocode. There will be some good explanation on the corresponding transformation as well. And once you're here, well, you're good to go. This is your next step. From this point on, transformation checks come in. And now you can illustrate how the application showcases these set of use cases, where any kind of automatic generation is done using just the mapping document, or even better, just the code. Just one important caveat here while we are at this. What we are looking at is the actual code, and many of you must have understood that if you're looking at just the code base, that is a little suspect. That's a little concerning, because your code base could be incorrect as well. And that is a grain of salt that we live with. We cannot inherently know if a code base is correct or incorrect without knowing a source of truth. And so what our source of truth is the documentation itself. That is what the mapping manager aims to be. It's a set of documentation, because you can update it as per your requirements. And say once you create a particular test case, and then after the test case has been created, say it's updated, well, you just go ahead and update a transformation logic right here itself, and you're good to go. because the test cases can then be linked and unlinked, similar to how we had seen earlier. So if I go back right there, if there are test cases generated, I can easily unlink them and then work them again to make sure they work with the updated transformation logic that I was working around. So these are a few set of things that I wanted to illustrate today. Luckily, after the initial mishap, everything seems to be going fine so far. So just as a repeat, we are bringing everything together. The first thing I illustrated was the confirmation, or using Copilot to create the queries. That was the first aspect. Really helpful for end users to start working on the test cases. Then we illustrated how Mapping Manager can create both transformation checks as well as data quality checks directly using the STTM file that is provided to you at many cases. So we had uploaded this file. We used this file to create the ETL checks as well as the DQ checks. And the last thing we covered is the fact that if you're working with a code base, let's actually go back to our code. If you're working with a code base, the application can automatically generate a transformation or mapping documents for you as well based on generative AI. And one of the key aspects here is a generative AI system can be HIPAA compliant as well based on the requirements. And again, we can have a subsequent discussion on that, on which generative AI agent are we using, can we use embedded agents and other aspects in subsequent calls or in detailed discussions as well. Thank you for this. Anand, back to you.
Okay, so thanks Subhanshu, thanks Anand, and thanks for sharing insights on how Datagaps adopts suite using generative AI to redefine data pipeline regulation, and Subhanshu for your extensive demo. And now we can take up the queries. So going with the very first query, how to validate paginated reports or Power App integrated visuals using Datagaps.
That's a very interesting question. So the way we work with paginated reports is by default. I mean, that's the key aspect here. Most reports are paginated by default. But what we do with our application, and this is a very BI-centric thing as opposed to generative AI, but we connect directly to the BI server and we fetch the reports in real time. That's most of our test cases. So when we are working with paginated reports, it happens with the exact same purview as well. That if you're working with paginated reports, or if you're working with, say, drill down, drill through, or any of the systems, we have tool sets to make sure we can do that. Because the way paginated reports work is just as simple as going to a particular report page and navigating to a particular system. And if anyone has worked in Power BI, they are aware that Selenium doesn't really work with that. So navigation is really tricky in terms of automation. We circumnavigate that because we are connecting directly to the BI server, and we can apply drill down, drill through, fetch the information. We can also fetch the corresponding use cases that we were dealing with in paginated systems in terms of applying filters, not applying filters, removing them, applying bookmarks, and also all these sort of things in an automated manner. So the way we work with paginated reports is directly by the BI server, by interacting with the BI server itself as opposed to interacting it via clicks like you might do in a typical automation system like Selenium.
Right. Great. Thanks, Subhanshu. Now, next question is, can the tool validate dynamic graphs like Sunburst chart?
Yes, we can validate that. However, we would like to have a nice deep down connect with you on this, because again, if you're working with dynamic systems, we would like to know on what is the rate on that, meaning that how often are these refreshed, because most charts in the application can work in a dynamic fashion because we apply some filters and slicers and these charts react to that. But if you're working with dynamic systems, the application should be able to fetch them. And I would definitely like to have a deeper discussion on this so that we can understand the exact use case with the dynamic values again there. And the application does support it inherently, but feel free to reach out to us for specific use cases here, as this is a very interesting use case for us as well.
Definitely. Please, you can reach out, Mr. Rohit. And then next is, can this validate drill through reports?
Yes, drill down, drill through reports is validated by the definition of drill down and drill through itself, as are the other types of navigation BI utilities that you might be dealing with. So yes, we do support drill down, drill through validation.
Great. Next is, what is the level of efficiency with automated test case generation? Do we require additional manual verification of test cases?
That's a very good question, and it's along the real lines as well, which is generative AI is not a magic wand yet. So it's going to do 90% of your work without any hassles, and for 10% it's going to be very difficult for it to understand what it's trying to do. This is particularly helpful when you think of highly complex queries. I'm talking 300, 400 line queries. I think that's the upper limit of what most generative AI systems are incapable of understanding, especially, and we have tried a lot of models with that as well. And so that is one of the key aspects, which is the human element so far has not been removed. The application is going to generate the transformation documentation. It's always going to generate the actual code itself. It's very helpful for an end user to go in and just validate and check that manually itself, because at this point, since we are using agentic AI, hallucination is not really the concern. The concern is just making sure that the query generated is in fact as correct as it can be, especially for the complex use cases. So I would answer that in short. The complex use cases is where you'll still have to put a bit of manual intervention to make sure the AI system is not confused or doing something incorrect. But for most of your checks, which are your usual checks, your usual transformations, which are much more simpler in nature, you can rely on generative AI in a good fashion.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Subhanshu. Next is which ETL mapping compatibility you were talking about. Maybe it was at the very beginning. So maybe Anand, it was for you. And what if data is flowing across different systems? Will it catalog and generate lineage automatically before generating test cases? And see, it's a mix of 2-3 questions. So should I take? I should take one by one. So yeah.
Right. So, Subhanshu, you want to answer the generative AI for lineage, how we take advantage of lineage?
Yes, I would like to showcase that. And yes, it's a part of our product inherently, and it's something that the mapping manager kind of ties itself into it automatically. So what you're seeing here is the lineage, and the key aspect here is regardless of where these data sets are moving from one source to another, from one model to another. As we saw, we were working from raw model to a staging to a MART model. The application can understand what the lineage of these data sets are one against the other. It's part of the application as through. With regards to what exact mapping document, by the way, this can be done automatically, and this is done before generating the test cases. That is part of the product itself. And with regards to which ETL mapping is compatible, that's a very good question, because the question stems from the fact that if you work with multiple, say, teams or projects or firms, you know that there is no standard or documentation for, say, mapping. SUTMs are different based on the corresponding projects you're working with, the clients you're working with, and so on. So what we are coming with an upcoming release is that, yes, you can upload any mapping document whatsoever, you're good to go. Currently, we expect it in a set format, but in the upcoming releases, we do have the aspect where any particular mapping document, as long as it has the essential components, which is the actual transformation, the source, the target columns and the data types, we should be good to go. As long as we have these essential columns, we should be in a good space. But that is what we are working towards. Currently, even if you have an existing mapping document, it is very easy to convert that into the one that we are expecting. So that's a bit on mapping compatibility.
And as we generate these mapping documents from the code, there is a certain format. And is this the format that we generate?
Yes, this is the exact format that we generate. And again, this can be exported out as well, as we had seen earlier, so that you can work with them further and you can share it across multiple teams if you don't want to share the access to Datagaps right there.
Great.
Right. And the question that is attached to this is, what about policy P2 governance?
Yeah, so the PII governance is very helpful because the application also inherently takes care of this as part of the product itself. As a key example, what I can showcase is if I am going into, say, one of my data models, say, let's go to my customer data model, because it's going to have a lot of demographics information, right? So if you're working with this demographics information, the first answer is we make sure that the correct people have access to the correct data. That's one of the first aspects here. The second aspect is when we are working with systems, we can identify if particular, say, names, or if I want to, say, kind of clarify names or not. In this example, what I've done is that I've kept first name as an open PII because I do have access to that, but I've hidden the full name, I have hidden the address line, and so on. I have access to all of this, and I can even change it as part of my product inherently within my system. So PII masking is part of the product inherently. If you want to, you can look into that. We can showcase that in a subsequent demonstration for you. And apart from the static masking, the way we work with governance is we make sure that the correct personnel has access to the correct data set using a good chunk of our container systems. So our containers is basically what you see right here, where different people can have access to different set of systems, and this is how we segregate access levels, and that's one other aspect of PII governance policy.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Subhanshu. Another last question would be like, where should teams start with AI in testing if they are early in the journey?
If they are early in the journey, well, I'll let Anand also take a hit at this one. But with regards to if they're early in their journey, I would really suggest them to make sure that they're keeping their documentation AI readable as well. That is one of the key aspects. So work with the application, give the descriptions, and use the application's profiling notes and other notes, which can be really helpful in helping the end user decide, okay, what kind of data quality rules we might want to work on, what kind of anomalies we are looking for. So a bit of profiling, a bit of discovery at the very beginning is really helpful, and AI can be really helpful in that. And again, our application can do that as well at the very beginning. And once we are concrete, then you can set in stone what your expectations are, and then improve on that bit by bit after some iterations, or as more requests come to you. That's my approach. Anand would like to add on that.
Yeah, sure. So to add on to that, we look for any kind of repetitive, high volume tasks that you want to do. Say, for example, test case authoring. So start with that. Start with the initial, rollout of this process, and then you can expand to other test cases. So, we have looked at a number of different capabilities. This is a summary of all the capabilities. We have the auto test builder, the SQL helper, the automatic documentation of the tables and columns, and several other capabilities that I've highlighted here. And given that, we want to start small and win fast. So turn on one of these modules like auto mapping of text to see the quality gains and free the time for the team for new ideas. So how do you engage with us? You can book a hands-on trial. You can ask us to demo the capabilities. You can compare the cycle times to AI, from manual or automated to AI powered, and see the difference. So our experts can help you guide the setup, change the different test cases that you can get value from, and you can see the how the release times can be improved by turning this into a faster data-backed decision. And finally, thank you for joining us, and apologies for some of the technical issues that we faced. You can get a hands-on demo or a trial by scanning this QR code, and you can check out our white papers and other material that we have on our website. And you can stay in touch by contacting us at contact@datagaps.com with additional questions or partnership ideas. And so we are ready to help you ship your data pipelines and dashboards worry-free with all these AI-powered capabilities. So let's innovate together. So Puja, back to you.
Yeah, thanks Anand, thanks Subhanshu for extensive demo and the total in-depth analysis that how data pipeline validation could be done using Datagaps DataOps suite with Gen AI capabilities. Next, we are really sorry as we have already apologized for the inconvenience. Also, there are few queries that were being left unanswered, so please contact us. You can just write to us, we can answer the queries. Just write to us at contact@datagaps.com, and we can definitely respond to your queries over there. Thank you for joining the session today, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.